The wind howls through splintered wood, carrying a faint metallic scent. Moonlight slices through gaps in the decaying roof of the old cabin, illuminating swirling dust motes like phantom dancers. A cold draft whispers past, not from an open window, but from deep within the shadowed, empty rooms. A low, guttural sound, almost like a sigh, echoes from the darkness. If that isn't the wind, then what else has been trapped here, watching? Deep in the quiet corners of our world, whispers often take root, growing into legends that chill to the bone. Tonight, we delve into one such tale, a local urban legend that refuses to stay buried. Before we begin, please like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next stories. Now, let's begin the story. The dusty old map lay splayed across Liam's coffee table, its faded contours outlining the forgotten trails of the Blackwood Forest. Chloe traced a finger along a jagged line, her brow furrowed. "This is where Victor Thorne supposedly vanished," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "Locals say he just reappeared weeks later, miles away, changed, mute, eyes vacant, scratching at his own skin." Liam, ever the skeptic, leaned closer, adjusting the old desk lamp. "Changed how exactly? The official report just says found in inexplicable condition." Chloe shook her head. "That's the urban legend part. They say whatever got him out there, it didn't let him go entirely. And it all started near that abandoned cabin, deep in the woods." He felt a shiver despite himself. This was more than just another abandoned place. This was a ghost story with a living, breathing victim. The drive to the edge of Blackwood Forest was long and silent, the air thick with anticipation. As they parked Liam's beat-up SUV, a chill wind swept through the trees, rustling dry leaves like skeletal fingers. Chloe pulled her cream-colored knit sweater tighter, glancing nervously at the dense wall of pines. "Are you sure about this, Liam?" she asked, her voice laced with trepidation. "People say that cabin, it's cursed." Liam, despite his adventurous spirit, felt a prickle of unease as well. The forest felt unnaturally quiet, devoid of birdsong. A faint, almost imperceptible path, barely more than a deer trail, snaked into the shadows. "Only one way to find out," he replied, forcing a confident grin. The towering trees seemed to watch them, their branches like gnarled arms reaching out from the gloom. The air grew heavy and cold as they pushed deeper into the woods, the faint path disappearing beneath a carpet of decaying leaves. After what felt like an eternity, the trees began to thin, revealing a clearing. There, nestled amongst overgrown brush, stood the cabin. It was a skeletal ruin, its wooden walls warped and gray, windows like vacant eyes staring out from under a sagging roof. The front door hung ajar, groaning faintly on rusted hinges. Liam pulled out his headlamp, its beam cutting through the gloom. A strange, almost metallic scent hung in the stagnant air. "Well, here we are," he whispered, the sound swallowed by the oppressive silence.
The decaying porch creaked ominously under their weight as they approached the threshold, a gaping maw into the unknown.
Stepping inside, the cabin swallowed them whole. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something subtly foul and indescribable. Dust motes danced in the single shaft of weak sunlight, piercing a grimy window, illuminating the skeletal remains of furniture, a broken chair, a collapsed table. On the far wall, covered in a thick layer of grime, Liam's headlamp caught something unusual. Not a carving, but a series of crudely drawn symbols etched directly into the wood. They pulsed with an almost tangible sense of dread. As Chloe moved closer, her breath hitched. Tucked into a crevice beside the symbols, half hidden by crumbling plaster, was a small, leather-bound journal. It looked old, water-damaged, and unmistakable. It was Victor Thorne's. A faint, guttural whisper seemed to echo from the corner of the room, sending a jolt of icy fear through them. The symbols on the wall seemed to deepen, to shift, as if watching. The water-damaged, leather-bound journal felt ancient in Liam's gloved hands. He carefully opened it, his headlamp illuminating pages filled with frantic, nearly illegible handwriting. Chloe leaned in, her thoughtful brown eyes scanning the scrawled entries. Victor's early notes described an increasing sense of being watched, the forest around the cabin feeling wrong, alive. Then came a chilling entry, a detailed account of strange guttural whispers he initially dismissed as wind, but which grew in clarity and malice, seeming to emanate from the very walls of the cabin. A cold, unseen draft snaked through the room, raising goosebumps on Chloe's arms. As Chloe began to read aloud, her voice a low murmur, the cabin seemed to grow colder, the air thick with unspoken dread. A faint, rhythmic scratching began, emanating from deep within the decaying walls, like claws dragging on wood. Liam spun around, his headlamp beam cutting through the oppressive shadows, revealing nothing but crumbling plaster and warped timber. The symbols on the far wall, once mere etchings, now seemed to throb with a faint, almost imperceptible pulse, and an immense, suffocating presence seemed to press in on them, stealing the air from their lungs. The scratching intensified, louder, closer. Victor's final entries were a descent into madness, scrawled with increasing desperation and smeared with what looked suspiciously like dried blood. He described a ritual he had stumbled upon, a horrifying communion not by men, but by something else that twisted his perception, making him see the ancient forest as a living, hostile entity, its branches like grasping talons. He wrote a feeling his own mind unraveling, his body no longer his own, taken over by an invasive, alien will. A deep, unsettling chill permeated the room, and Chloe's voice trembled, cracking with barely contained horror as she read of Victor's final terrified moments, his pleas for release from the entity that had claimed him. Suddenly, a guttural shriek ripped through the cabin, not from any discernible direction, but from everywhere at once, vibrating through their very bones. The crudely drawn symbols on the wall blazed with a sickly greenish light, pulsing with malevolent energy, and the rotten floorboards beneath their feet groaned and buckled as if the very cabin itself was alive, convulsing in agony. The journal slipped from Chloe's trembling fingers, falling open to a page with a final, terrifying entry scrawled in what appeared to be dried blood. "They are here. They want to wear my skin." A thick, viscous, dark liquid began to seep slowly from between the crudely etched symbols on the wall, dripping onto the dusty, decaying floor, smelling of something ancient and foul. The foul, viscous liquid oozed from the glowing symbols, dripping onto the floor with a sickening plop, smelling of decay and something far older than dust. Liam Miller, the urban explorer, frozen in primal terror, instinctively yanked Chloe Davis, the local historian, away from the wall. The guttural shriek still echoed in their ears, vibrating through the very timbers of the cabin, which now seemed to moan around them. "We have to go, now," he croaked, his voice raw with fear, his headlamp beam frantically sweeping across the deepening shadows. The cabin felt alive, malevolent, pressing in on them. They stumbled towards the sagging front door, their hearts pounding against their ribs like trapped birds. But as Liam Miller, reached for the rusted handle, it slammed shut with a thunderous bang, sending a cloud of ancient dust billowing into the air. The guttural shriek returned, closer this time, a mocking, triumphant sound that seemed to reverberate from every surface. The wooden floorboards groaned and shifted violently beneath their feet, threatening to give way, while the air grew impossibly colder, a chilling breath against their necks. They were trapped, sealed within the malevolent structure. A sudden, violent tremor shook the cabin, and a section of the far wall, near where Victor's journal had been found, splintered and collapsed inward, revealing a hidden crawl space. From the suffocating darkness within, two vacant, bloodshot eyes stared out, wide with an ancient terror, framed by matted, mud-stained hair. It was a ghastly reflection of Victor Thorne, or what was left of him, his mouth agape in a silent, agonizing scream, his skin covered in the same strange, crude symbols that adorned the wall. Chloe Davis gasped, a strangled cry caught in her throat, her mind struggling to reconcile the horror before her with any known reality. A sudden, violent tremor shook the cabin, and a section of the far wall, near where Victor's journal had been found, splintered and collapsed inward, revealing a hidden crawl space. From the suffocating darkness within, two vacant, bloodshot eyes stared out, wide with an ancient terror, framed by matted, mud-stained hair. It was a ghastly reflection of Victor Thorne, or what was left of him, his mouth agape in a silent, agonizing scream, his skin covered in the same strange, crude symbols that adorned the wall. Chloe Davis gasped, a strangled cry caught in her throat, her mind struggling to reconcile the horror before her with any known reality. As the horrifying visage of Victor Thorne began to twitch, his emaciated fingers clawing weakly at the edges of the crawl space, a voice, deep and resonant, yet distinctly not human, echoed directly inside Liam Miller's mind. It wasn't spoken, it was implanted, a horrifying realization. "He is but a vessel," the voice boomed, "and soon you will be too." A searing pain lanced through Liam's skull, and he stumbled backward, clutching his head, his vision blurring. He glanced at Chloe Davis, and saw a flicker of the same vacant, ancient terror in her eyes, as if the entity had just spoken to her as well.
The cabin was merely a gateway. The true horror was far more insidious, already inside them.
The guttural voice, now searingly clear within Liam's mind, twisted his thoughts. We require more than mere flesh. We seek a mind vibrant, a spirit unbroken. His, Victor Thorne's, was adequate. Yours, Liam Miller, and hers are exquisite. The pain in Liam's head intensified, a burning ice. He stumbled, looking at Chloe, whose eyes mirrored his terror, her hand instinctively going to her temple. The words weren't spoken, they were felt, vibrating through their very souls, a horrifying intimacy. Victor Thorne's emaciated form in the crawlspace twitched again, a ghastly puppet animated by unseen strings, his bloodshot eyes fixed on them. The cabin pulsed with a sickening rhythm, the air growing heavy, metallic. A wave of crushing pressure descended, pushing them down as if an invisible giant stood upon their chests. The cabin groaned, not with age, but with malice. Timber twisting, nails shrieking as they tore from wood. Victor Thorne's silent scream from the crawlspace intensified, his mouth stretching impossibly wide. His emaciated hands, now covered in the same crude symbols, began to claw frantically at the splintered edges of the opening, attempting to pull himself out. "Do not resist," the voice echoed, now a chorus of whispers from every shadowed corner. Dust and decaying plaster rained down, blinding them for a moment. Liam, gasping for breath, forced himself upright, pulling Chloe with him. "The door! We have to break it down!" he yelled, his voice a desperate rasp against the cacophony of groans and whispers. The entity within his mind laughed, a cold, dry sound. As they lunged towards the front door, it didn't just slam shut again. It sealed, wood fusing with wood, the ancient planks becoming an impenetrable barrier, pulsating with the same sickly green light that emanated from the symbols. A gust of frigid air, laden with the stench of the grave, swept through the room, extinguishing Liam's headlamp, plunging them into suffocating darkness. The darkness was absolute, a living, suffocating blanket. Panic clawed at Chloe's throat. She reached for Liam's hand, needing to feel something real. But instead, her fingers brushed against something slick and cold, something that felt like scales. A low, wet chuckle vibrated through her, not from Liam's mouth, but from within him. A faint, sickening green glow reignited, not from the symbols on the wall, but from deep within Liam's eyes, burning with an alien intelligence. His grip tightened, impossibly strong, as the guttural voice, now emanating directly from his lips, whispered, "Welcome, Chloe. It's time to join the chorus." The chilling words, now spoken from Liam's lips, reverberated through Chloe, a physical assault on her senses. His grip on her hand tightened, the touch impossibly cold, and the sickly green glow in his eyes intensified, a stark contrast to the familiar warmth she once knew. It wasn't Liam Miller anymore. It was an echo, a twisted mockery of her friend. She felt a profound, suffocating dread, not just for herself, but for the Liam she knew, trapped somewhere within this monstrous facade. The guttural voice, now his voice, carried an ancient, malevolent triumph, a promise of eternal torment. The entity, speaking through Liam, leaned closer, its green eyes boring into Chloe's very soul. "He fights," it rasped, a wet, sickening sound. "But his struggle only feeds us. Your will, Chloe Davis, is strong. We feel its vibrancy. Imagine the symphony we could create together." A grotesque smile stretched Liam's lips, utterly alien. Chloe tried to pull away, to scream, but her muscles locked in fear. The cabin itself seemed to hum with the entity's insidious presence, the dark liquid still oozing from the symbols on the wall, forming grotesque puddles on the rotten floorboards. She could feel the entity trying to breach her own mind, a cold tendril of invasive thought. Suddenly, a surge of adrenaline, fueled by pure defiance, coursed through Chloe. She remembered Victor's journal, his desperate pleas for release. This wasn't just a possession, it was a consumption. With a primal roar, she ripped her hand free from Liam's chilling grasp. Her eyes darted around the oppressive cabin, searching for anything, a weapon, an exit, a means to fight back against this ancient evil. The floorboards groaned ominously beneath her feet, and the unseen entity within Liam let out a low, guttural growl, its green eyes flaring with renewed malice. Chloe stumbled backwards, her heart hammering, as Liam, or what was left of him, lunged. She tripped over something half buried in the dust, a splintered wooden plank. Desperation igniting a spark of reckless courage, she snatched it up, swinging wildly. The plank connected with Liam's shoulder with a sickening thud, but he barely flinched, his green eyes fixed on her with predatory intent. The entity's voice, now a triumphant chorus, boomed inside her head. "Resistance is futile. Your mind, Chloe, will be a grand addition to our collective." As Liam's distorted hands reached for her, she felt a cold embrace, not from him, but from the very air around her, pulling her down into an abyss of green light and whispering shadows. The cabin ceiling above them began to crack, a slow spiderweb fracture spreading outwards. Thank you for joining us on this terrifying journey into the Blackwood Forest. If you enjoyed the Hiker's haunting, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more spine-chilling tales, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next story.